All right, y'all, welcome back. Happy Sunday. It's officially football season. So today we're going to be breaking down our offense versus Syracuse defense. Please like and make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. This is our schedule for the upcoming season. Of course, we are all scheduled this week because on Sundays we would be looking at the film from Saturday's game. But since we didn't have one, we're just going to move things up pretty much one day. So today, obviously, we're going to be doing our offense versus Syracuse defense. On Monday, it's probably going to be our defense versus their offense. And then on Tuesday, I'm not quite sure what we're going to be doing, but we'll have something out for y'all. On Wednesdays, okay, I want to make sure that I highlight all the live streams. So Wednesday night, we will be going live at about 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our midweek chat. And that's Tennessee fans, Syracuse fans, anybody else, just kind of talking about how we're feeling with the game, so on and so forth. And then on Saturdays, of course, we have a live pre and post game show. We hope that y'all can join us for every single part of it. It should be a very, very fun year. Now let's talk about Tennessee's offense versus Syracuse defense. We're just basically starting off on paper, and this is how it looks from like a talent standpoint. Got these numbers from 24/7 Sports, and you can see that Tennessee has a total of 22 blue chip caliber players. Syracuse has 6 on their defense. I like to focus on the front 7, our offensive line. We have 9 guys there, and then if you're looking at Syracuse, they have a total of 3 guys that are blue chip caliber up front. Notice that with their linebackers, there's 9 of them, but on paper they just don't look very talented. This is the thing, y'all. Honestly speaking, like their talent level is about on par with Vanderbilt. Like Vanderbilt, I think has maybe 12 blue chip caliber players, and Syracuse has 12 to 14. It's in that ballpark. Syracuse does have a few 5-stars, so it's a little bit different from that standpoint. The whole point of what I'm trying to make here, though, y'all, is that the game is not played on paper. I think that Coach Brown is a really good coach. They will play hard, and they're going to have some things, dialed up to try to slow down what Tennessee likes to do. And Coach Brown already came out and said that they want to try to limit all the big plays. So we saw that last year a lot. That's mostly what teams did. Arkansas, NC State did it some. Obviously, Oklahoma, really almost everyone that we played up against. But with all those things being said, I think that we should hopefully be able to kind of like dictate terms because we are the more talented team. And they've got a bunch of transfer portal players in. We've got several in too, but I think that Tennessee should be fine. Now, let's take a look at the stats from last year. This is over the course of the whole year. And you can see what the strength of schedule is for each team. So that's based off of ESPN. Tennessee's strength of schedule was ranked number 16 last year, and Syracuse was ranked number 75. So let's just keep that in mind as we're going through all this stuff. And also, this will give us maybe a little bit of maybe a pretty solid like indication of what the teams might look like this season. But I do think that both teams will more than likely be better in each of these like stats moving forward, especially Syracuse, just because I think that they have a whole lot more room to get better from last year. But the only place that Tennessee isn't better with the stats that we like to look at on this channel is if you look up at the top where it says total/scoring, on that second line, all the way to the far right, you're going to see the sacks per game. So Tennessee gave up 2.3 sacks per game last year, which was 87th, and Syracuse got 2 sacks per game, which was 63rd. So they would technically be better in that category. But I think that our offensive line is going to be significantly better, especially with pass pro this season. I think that some of the new wrinkles to our offense will help out with some of those things. And just being able to, find a way to keep the football moving versus those, deep shell types of looks that Tennessee got a lot of last year. And I think that we'll see a whole lot of that as well versus Syracuse, especially to kind of like start this game off. But you can see that some of the numbers are kind of close. So like with our passing offense last year, close to what their passing defense looked like. Rushing, Tennessee's going to be run first for sure. We can run the football on pretty much anybody and everybody, and we have. I think that we look here. Well, we averaged 225, almost 226 yards per game last season versus SEC level competition, like going up against dudes. It's really mostly just based off of our system, spreading the field out wide. It's tough for you to stop the runs because the boxes are so light. But like I said, Arkansas, I think they did a really good job with their game plan. Watch out for Syracuse to mimic a lot of what Arkansas did. But outside of that, man, I think Tennessee's in a good spot. Again, this is just from last year. You got to look at the turnovers. You got to watch that closely because their secondary does a good job with the interceptions. Once we get into like the actual film part of this, breaking down how their defensive structure works, y'all will see what I'm talking about, how it might be a problem. Just kind of like take what they give you. That's going to be my biggest point of emphasis. But yeah, I mean, I feel confident, obviously, with what our offense can do versus their defense. Now, with that being said, y'all, typically after this, we would be going on and taking a look at their key players on defense. They've got some new players in. They've got some pretty good ones that's come back from last season. Nothing that really stands out to me where I feel like we need to, actually break that down and talk about them too much. We'll see what happens in this game. We're mostly just pulling stuff from last year. but it's going to be tough for me to kind of pinpoint who their real true like dogs are on defense. But we will have some people lined up for the offense. So their defensive structure last season, they were about 70% down, which means that they have 6 secondary players. That's typically what you do versus teams that make you play out in space. It's good. In theory, it should be good versus like passing offenses because you've got more people playing out in coverage. Like I said, man, and we'll talk about this more, but just kind of like take what they give you. Just don't force it there. It should be a little bit weaker versus the run, but this is the thing is that versus Tennessee's system where the field is so spread out, it's maybe not necessarily going to be as true that that we can run on it easier just because what they do or what I think that they will do going back to Arkansas, what they did, they ran a whole lot of dime versus Tennessee, and they would bring one of the secondary players down late into the box. So Tennessee would count the numbers and say, okay, we've got everything kind of like matched up where we can run it and we've got positive numbers. But then once that last player, once a player comes down in late, it throws things off. And I just hopefully we can make that person pay. If it's like a one-on-one situation, like their safety or whoever versus our running back, hopefully, things will work out from that standpoint. But yeah, I think that we should, playing a whole bunch of 12 personnel, we should hopefully at some point be able to get them to kind of like tighten up. Once we can get them more into the box, that's where I think Tennessee can run the football easier. So I just wanted to kind of point that out. Now, just talking about their coverage, like we already talked about, Coach Brown said that he wants to play deep coverage. Okay, like he wants to try to limit all of the big plays. So we're talking cover 3, which is what they ran the most of last season. They also ran cover 1 at, I think that was number 2. I don't expect a whole lot of cover 1, not in this game. I think that they'll try to go cover 3, cover 4. So just a bunch of people playing deep. You got to take what they give you, get the football to your playmakers out in space. They got to make people miss, just like here. Just make them pay. And obviously, we should be able to run on that pretty well with some outside zone powers, inside zone. Doesn't really matter if it's inside or outside. Just based off of how they ultimately like line up with how we're lining up will tell us where we want to be able to run the football at. But I think that we can get some mismatches. We will be able to, at some point, like get some isolated one-on-ones. That's when I want Joey Aguilar throwing the football down the field. And what you're looking at now is just our defense, or I'm sorry, our offense versus some defenses last year that played what I think will like look similar to what Syracuse does coming up on Saturday. So we can find ways to make plays. Like I said, man, adding some of the wrinkles with our scheme, that's the biggest thing that's like the most positive thing that we did in the offseason, because it doesn't too much matter what type of talent that you have out there. Unless it's perfect everywhere, it's going to be very, very tough to, have an offense that just plays vertical all the time, spreads the field out wide all the time. And, you've got a defense that's just pretty much playing deep, coming up and making tackles and forcing us. It's basically like dictating terms, making us having to just dink and dunk down the field. Now, in this game, I think that we will have to do mostly that. Just take care of the football. And at some point, like I said, we will get the openings down the field. But yeah, I feel like a whole bunch of 12 personnel, couple of like gadget plays. I hopefully we'll get, 3, 4, 5 running backs to get some touches in this game. And we just look good running that football. I think that the tempo will come back. Like we're trying to bring that back. And we can do it now just because we are adding that like wrinkle, like having an answer to how teams play us is how we can get back to running the tempo. It's not so much about people always want to, give like a bad name to these kids and say that, well, this person couldn't process, that person couldn't process. That's not the problem. The problem with last year is that Tennessee's offense was literally working up against a defense that had us totally figured out. So the simple fact that we did as well as we did with the numbers that we just looked at, that to me just speaks volumes about how well coached this team actually is and the dog and the fight that we had. Well, we had the same thing this year. I think so. I feel like we've got a big chip on our shoulder. I know the Syracuse does too. But one of my other things is that you should never need any like extra motivation to get ready to play a game on Saturdays or just period. Because the simple fact that this is like a, combat sort of a situation and the other team felt confident enough to show up to the game should piss you off to the point that you play with your hair on fire. So to me, that type of stuff, like I always laugh whenever people say, oh, well, they're going to talk about this inside of the locker room, dog. Like if they have to do that, then they probably already lost. So I don't think that doesn't matter for either team. Both will have some sort of a chip on their shoulder. Both teams will feel maybe like disrespected based off of the rankings and all that. Doesn't matter. Are you going to show up and are you going to execute? I think that Tennessee has a team that can definitely get that done. And, I feel confident. If I have any question marks, it is just like we touched on with the turnovers. It's not just with Joey Aguilar, who is a gunslinger. He's got to don't throw the football into coverage and just do stupid stuff. As long as he can just be a game manager, I think Tennessee should be perfectly fine. But also, man, like with the fumbles, can't be doing that. We've got a really young wide receiver core, very talented, but it's not that many players there. So I have, maybe a few question marks there. But I think that just like the core of this team, with our offense is probably strong enough that we should be perfectly fine in this game. I don't know. Obviously, later on, later on in this week, I will be giving y'all like more stats and like a score and all that. But I'll just say that look out for this game to be one where maybe not a whole bunch of passing yards. You know what I'm saying? It might just look very kind of like, basic level stuff. You know what I'm saying? Where, hey, man, it's just a whole bunch of slants, a whole bunch of hitches, and maybe a few deep passes. Don't let that worry you, just because that's a positive thing. Like we want teams to come up and try to play that type of stuff more, because as the season wears on, it'll open it up down the field. And I think that we can hit on some of those things. But this one to me is just about getting confidence and, just finding that kind of like next gear for us to take, because I'm not quite sure where the entire offense is at this point, right? Just because there are so many new pieces, like the wide receivers just kind of like getting healthy. So it might not look the best with our passing game, but the running game will always be there. The tight ends, they're going to be there in our passing game, in our run blocking game, all of that, so on and so forth. So I do feel very confident with this matchup. I think that Syracuse takes a couple of steps forward, but it just shouldn't be. It should not be enough for them to really slow down what Tennessee does, as long as we take care of the football. But those are my thoughts. Please share yours down in the comments section. And as always, please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and we'll be talking to y'all tomorrow. Thanks. Peace. Thanks for watching. And please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, because that keeps us growing inside of the YouTube algorithm. And if you did like this video, here's another one that you might also enjoy. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.